Well, good morning. It's Saturday, June 10th at about 10:15 in the morning, and the gardening work still continues. I continue to weed the flower gardens, add compost, dig the compost in, and plant new plants. We've purchased a number of new plants in the recent days. There was a few days there where I wasn't getting out in the garden because of the heavy smoke that we had laden over the area. Made breathing difficult, caused stinging in the back of the throat and the nose, nasal passages, so it wasn't a good time to be out. There was actually warnings against it, so we chose to stay in for a few days. So I'm back out again now, and the last couple days have been good too. Been trying to get these gardens ready for the year and get them looking decent, so I'm out working in the Hosta garden right now. Last year I added mulch to this garden. It was the mulch I just picked up for free from one of the local tree cutting services. These tree services often chip up their wood that they gather from sites they're working on, and they chip it up and then bring it back to their own places and pile it. And sometimes it doesn't get used, so I was able to get some of that for free. What I'm doing today is I'm just raking back that compost underneath the hostas, and I thought I'd add a nice layer of compost, and the hostas should really like that and should aid in their growth quite a bit. They're doing well out here for the most part, but our soil is so sandy that the nutrients get depleted in it quite quickly. And even when I've added compost in the past, mainly our horse manure compost, it doesn't last forever. It gets worked into the soil and then needs replacing. So that's what I'm doing, at least under the hostas. I'm raking back the mulch, which is about 3 or 4 inches deep. You can see here under my big Empress Woo hosta here, there's 3 or 4 inches of mulch that I've moved back, and I'm just putting the compost under here, and that should really help them to grow even bigger and healthier. Okay, this is my guacamole hosta, I believe, and I've cleared out its area here of the mulch. Now I'm just going to throw in some nice compost. Then once it rains, the rain will wash this down into the lower soils and provide more nutrients and aeration. I'm not actually digging up the soil around the hosta, so I'm just surface composting here. I'm not mixing it in per se. So I'm basically scraping the mulch out from under the leaf area. That will provide a good zone of application for the compost, which will then go into all the root area, because the roots don't really go out past the leaf zone on these plants typically. I'm putting down about 2 or 3 inches of compost around these plants, and I'm thinking I may just leave it open like this for a while, because we are expecting a little bit of rain in the near future, and I'm hoping that the rain can go directly onto this compost and then work it down into the lower soils. If I cover it up right away with the old mulch that I've just removed, the rain may stay mainly in the mulch and not get down into the soil. So I think I'll leave it uncovered like this for a while. And then I'm thinking I may actually get some true mulch from a garden center or something like that, that has finer texture and is really 100% just sort of like a shredded bark or something. This rough stuff that I got from the tree cutting service was okay, but it looks a little rough and doesn't cover that well in some respects. You get a lot of weeds coming up through it. I think because it's got quite a bit of variation in the texture size, from small to big to twigs to old leaves and things. But anyhow, we'll see. So just finishing up cleaning the mulch out from the last of the hostas here in the big hosta garden. Finding some of the labels. Unfortunately, I've lost some of them. Now add the compost to these final ones. Well, there we are. I finished adding the compost under all the hostas in this large hosta garden here. When I think back to how I came to like hostas, it goes right back to my childhood actually. I remember my parents had a row of hostas right along the walkway to our old house, and I remember seeing them in bloom all the time in the summer with the nice mauve blooms and seeing the bees on them and that kind of stuff. And I always liked the look of them. So whenever I've had gardens, I like to have hostas, although I really got into them in a big way just probably 5 to 10 years ago. I'll just do a little review of the hostas that I have in this garden. And some of them I've lost the labels for, but some I remember and some I don't. So there's one at least here I'm a little uncertain of. This is called king size plantain lily. It has an upright form, almost like a vase shape coming out of the ground, compared to some of the others that are more spreaders. Here's a smaller hosta called Francie. And this is guacamole. These have been planted here now for 4 or 5 years, I guess it is. Here's Regal Splendor, which has a vase shape similar to the king size I just showed. And this one also has the creamy white leaf edges. This is one of the Marginata series. I forget which actual one it is. Oreo Marginata, I think. Here's an avocado. In behind that is one of the largest hostas you can get. It's called Empress Wu. And this one's doing really well. It's got at least a 5-foot spread on it now. And in behind here is one of the standard old favorites that also get very large. This is the Blue Angel. And it's not a lot smaller than the Empress Wu, but I think the Empress Wu will continue to get larger and larger for a few years yet. This little one was a Francis Williams, I believe, and I don't know what happened to it. When I first put it in, I think one year it did quite well, and it was sort of a 2 or 3 feet across, and then it went small last year. It looks better this year, although it's still small, only about a foot across or so, but we'll give it a chance here. This is Big Daddy, now coming in about 3 feet across or so. Nice crinkled blue leaves. And this is one I've lost the label for, and I'm not quite sure what it is, but it has nice bicolored leaves with the darker blue on the outside, lighter green on the inside. Very pretty. And here's another hosta that has a potential of getting quite big. They're slower growing, so it's just taking a while, but it's pretty big now. It's 3 feet across, but this is T-Rex, and it has sort of long oval shaped leaves, somewhat of an upright habit, but also spreading irregularly from side to side instead of totally symmetrical like a lot of hostas. Anyhow, those are the hostas I have in this garden. I've got hostas in some of my other gardens too, and I still have to do some work in some of those gardens, but I've always enjoyed the hostas. They give a nice tropical look to the area, even though they're not a tropical plant. They come from Asia, I think. So, but they have a very nice deep tropical look to them, which I've always enjoyed. The dark compost underneath the hostas really makes them stand out nicer for sure compared to the light brown bark. So in the end, I may end up getting some black mulch that would look really nice under these. Put that in there just under the plants, and I'll move this other mulch off to the side like it is now. But as I mentioned, I'm going to let the air get down into these hostas and let the rain get through the compost, go down to the roots, and that should really help them grow, I think.